I'm getting remarried to a new wife. Thanks for everything till now. James laughed cheerfully and said, standing next to him, my mother-in-law also added with a full smile, you should get divorced and leave. It seems that for James and my mother-in-law, the decision to welcome his lover as his new wife was already a done deal. I was being cast aside. But I'm not troubled. I knew this would happen sooner or later. James is smitten with his lover, and my in-law has fully accepted her. But of course, I didn't just sit by quietly. I had prepared a surprise for this moment. Vexnuct, now Exclerion. James, are you ready? My name is Wendy Ross. I'm 35 years old. I married James when I was 27. Currently, we live together in an apartment. Let's have kids when we're a bit more settled. 4 years have passed since he said that. Before we knew it, both James and I were getting on in years. I want to have children now. Great, when I was thinking this, I realized that James was having an affair. James was never good at lying. I have to work overtime today. That had become his recent excuse. But it was clear from his pasted lips that it was a lie. He would often leave the house alone on his days off. I immediately thought he might be cheating. But somewhere in my heart, I still believed in him. I loved James so much, that's why I married him. I thought he felt the same. So, I decided to confront James. I thought if I asked him to stop the affair, he would agree. But why do you think I'm having an affair? It happened during dinner. When I broached the topic, James frowned. I hurriedly said, but you've been finding reasons to be away from home recently, haven't you? You doubt me just for that. James was furious. But at that moment, I was relieved. James wasn't cheating. He was angry because I doubted him. That's what I thought. I was naive. That's the problem. Why? I hate how suspicious you are. That's why I turned to her. Huh. My voice was trembling. My heart was racing. Could he be cheating? I leaned over the table. Joel to Junior at work. She's honest and kind, unlike you. James then looked blissfully happy. I'd see if I could be with her, every day would be fun. For a young girl wouldn't be interested in you. I said this as if to convince myself. James is already in his 40s. He doesn't have a high income. I was a model when I was young. James retorted defiantly. That's right. I remember because he bragged about it often. James is tall and still in good shape. He has a handsome face. He could pass for someone in his late 20s or early 30s. But his real age is known at his company. And while I was thinking this, James said, I can't stay with a wife who doubts me like this. Divorce, divorce. He shouted that and thrust a piece of paper at me. It was a divorce paper. You're joking, right? I'm serious. Bye, Wendy. This went that. James went out to the hallway and left the house. Maybe you'll stay at a friend's, or perhaps... I held the divorce paper and hung my head in despair. The next early morning, James returned. Perhaps because of yesterday, he was moving quietly. He seemed to have come to pick up his bag and change of clothes for work. Touched James when I called out to him. James recoiled as if startled. I was handing him a lunchbox. James looked at me in surprise. Is this? I made lunch. I realized I hadn't done it recently. Please eat it if you like. Oh, okay then. Though he didn't say thank you. James seemed happy. I was satisfied. That's good. Maybe I can still make things right. I thought James needed to be more serious about the divorce papers yesterday. That's when I was plunged into shock and disappointment. Why? The lunch I made was thrown away in the trash can, just as it was. I had lunch with a colleague, saying that James sat down on a chair. So, is dinner ready? After throwing away my lunch, how can you say that? I couldn't stay calm anymore. You could have eaten it later, at least not thrown it away. Well, James said with a wry smile, your lunch is just uncool. Fix the uncool. Yeah, it's so uncool I can't show it to anyone. Then Brianna. Who's Brianna? I shouted, even though I understood she was James's affair partner, just a junior at work, as she makes lunch for me every day. Hers are stylish, unlike yours. So you threw mine away. James laughed mockingly. I was sure of it. I've never heard of a mere colleague making lunch every day. There was no doubt left. It seemed James had become brazen about it. He started mentioning Brianna's name openly at home. I'm going home this weekend. James said it out of the blue. I was puzzled. Is there something this week? Just let it be. James dismissed the conversation, not seeking my opinion. Then, on the weekend, when I went to his parents' house, I saw an unfamiliar face. This is Brianna? It's nice to meet you. Brianna, the woman called by that name, bowed slightly. She was just as charming as James always praised. Exactly the type James would like. Why is she here? I asked James a very reasonable question. Fridge to this. James replied with a smile. I introduced her to my parents. She's going to be the new wife, hum. I was stunned. This new wife while I'm still here. Like I said before, James continued looking as if he'd have done nothing wrong. Wendy, you're too suspicious and have no sense of style. You're just not right for me. What is that? I was speechless. What kind of nerve does this man have? How can he say such things? Trent. Brianna started speaking, looking apologetic, but then said something shocking. I'm pregnant. I'm finally going to be a father. James hugged Brianna happily. Unconsciously. I touched my stomach. I can have children too, you know. Yeah, but if I'm having kids, I prefer them to be good looking. That's why you're out of the picture. That's so cruel. I had always believed in James's words. He never intended to have children with me. A child with Brianna is sure to be cute, James said proudly. Brianna looked troubled, glancing at me. My mother-in-law glanced at me as she watched this scene. My mother-in-law glared with a sharp gaze. You don't have any complaints, do you? No. I could only nod, as I hung my head. James coldly said, despite laughing. I wondered how he could produce such a cold voice while smiling. You should get divorced and leave. My mother-in-law, standing beside James, also had a full smile. And I was being discarded. I sighed. Honestly, I had a faint suspicion when I was told to go to his parents' house, that it would come to this. Even more so when James started talking about Brianna at home. I realized that our end was not far off. That premonition had now become a reality. It can't be helped. I decided to accept it. After all, I had prepared a surprise for this day, taking a deep breath. I said, I'm already divorced, and that woman... The room froze. James retorted with a strained face. Sling poor excuse. Divorced? You and me? Yes. Didn't you give me the divorce papers the other day? My voice was surprisingly calm. Yes, I am calm now. I won't be deceived by James's words or smiles anymore. The divorce paper had your signature, so I also signed it. I submitted it after the visit to his parents' house was decided. I resolved that it was over between James and me. Still, I didn't expect him to bring Brianna to his parents' house. So you and I are already legally divorced. That's convenient then. Right. That's why I took the initiative. When I said that, James became delighted. Nice preparation. Thanks, Undy, for divorcing me. Now I can be with Brianna without any worries. You're welcome. Was this the first time James had thanked me? I felt a sense of emptiness. Until recently, I loved this man. I had no eye for people. But James was no better in that regard. You can't remarry, you know. Why not? Because that person is already married? Shocked by my words, James looked at Brianna in disbelief. He asked her desperately, "Okay, Brianna, you're joking, right? You and I've no intention of being with you." Brianna stated this clearly. James and his mother were stunned. It's no surprise since their eagerly awaited plan had crumbled. Why? Because with you, it was just a fling. Brianna still had a troubled look, but spoke sharply. I did say I was pregnant, but I never said it was your child. I was wondering what to do when you jumped to conclusions. After saying that, Brianna looked at me. Thank you. It's good that the wife is a strong person. It's no problem. I forced a wry smile. It was like a poorly made comedy. The woman he confidently claimed was suitable for him was already married to another man. I wonder how James feels now. Well, I should be going now. Wait, Brianna. James tried desperately to stop her, but Brianna did not look back. My mother-in-law was so shocked that her dentures almost fell out. James was devastated for a while, but then glared at me. What's going on? Wendy? I hired a detective to investigate. Turns out she's already married. Speaking of which, about her husband, now it was my turn to be cheerful. I proudly said, her husband is your manager. Oh, don't lie. Brianna and the manager don't even make eye contact at the company. James's voice was desperate and I felt sad. He had never been so earnest for my sake. They both keep it professional at work. I easily dismissed James's argument, but James held his head. Brianna is the manager's. What will happen to me if that gets out? It's okay, I say with a full smile. The sadder my heart feels, the more I smile. I've already told everything to Manager Thompson. What have you done? James looked like he was about to cry. Being humiliated over Brianna was just the beginning. The real show starts now. My son is the victim, she said in a pained voice. Deceived by that woman and then betrayed by you. My son could end up unemployed at this rate. If that's what you say, then I was deceived by your son. I put on my biggest smile. My lips were trembling slightly. I truly loved James. I was happy to be married to him. James, Brianna and I broke that happiness. But that's over now. James chose another woman. I respect his decision. My mother-in-law collapsed onto the floor, overwhelmed by my smile. At that moment, James's smartphone rang. He checked the caller and turned pale. It's Manager Thompson. It's good timing. Answer it. I urged James to take the call. Hurry up, or it'll get worse. Whose fault do you think this is? Exactly, it's your fault. You didn't even realize you were being played. Plus, Manager Thompson and Brianna have the same last name. James's face turned even paler. He looked at me several times as if seeking help, but I did nothing. James nervously answered the call. Manager. You. What are you doing with my wife? His voice was so loud I could hear it even from a distance. My wife is pregnant, and you knowing that. Brianna came on to me. James was outraged, but that was a mistake. I see. Wait, the manager. I'm sorry for speaking ill of your wife. It's not like that, Enough. Don't come to the company ever again. I don't want to see your face. James collapsed to the ground, just like his mother. It's a lie. This can't be happening. I wish you'd told me it was a lie. I inadvertently spoke my true feelings, despite trying to remain composed. I couldn't suppress my emotions. Do you know how I felt when I was sure you were cheating? I don't care about that. James spat out the words. It's your fault for being so unattractive and suspicious, yet neglecting your femininity, because you never helped with the housework. I was shouting. I managed all the housework alone, with no time for fashion. I preferred to spend on living expenses rather than on makeup. That's how I supported our household. You understand? It's your fault for being bad at managing time. James still refused to acknowledge his fault. Don't blame everything on me. You always cook bland food? Where's the expense in that? That's the cooking I learned from my mother. Don't speak ill of it. For the first time, I lost my smile and was genuinely angry. I might be expressing anger towards him for the first time. I'd always been afraid of being disliked by James, so I never voiced my thoughts. But now it's different. We're no longer husband and wife, or anything at all. I'll say what I want to say. But you always say convenient things and push troublesome matters onto me. Look at the reality for once. What did you say? Stop it now. My mother-in-law struggled to stand up. Just with a pained expression, she put her hand on her forehead. Both of you, go back home. I can't stand any more commotion. By me. Are you abandoning me too? James cried out in agony, but his mother ignored him. I left the house alone, catching a taxi. James and I parted ways, neither of us yielding. Sigh, ink. Feeling melancholic. I called my mother. As I explained the situation, my mother's voice became sad. I can't believe James turned out to be that kind of person. What will you do now? I haven't decided yet. That was the truth. Despite not wanting to worry my mother, I ended up revealing all my true feelings. For now, let me stay over. That's in a few days. I'll find an apartment or something and move out. You don't have to worry about that. My mother was considerate. You've done enough. Just relax at home, okay? Okay. I decided to take comfort in my mother's words. My sister and her husband were also visiting my parents' house. Big sis, are you okay? You look terrible. Unsigned. Burp. Now expectees, Snilk. I won't have to go through any more unpleasantness. I answered with a forced smile. My sister had just given birth to her first daughter. Seeing the sleeping baby in her arms and her husband gazing at them, tears welled up in my eyes. Big sis. Sorry. It's nothing. I had split up with James. I wouldn't be troubled by him anymore. I was free. Yet the tears wouldn't stop. Andy. Yeah. My mother took my hand and led me to the hallway. Go to your room. It's been cleaned. You can use it right away. Thank you, Mom. I thanked my mother and headed to my room. The room was as clean as my mother had said. It felt as comfortable as if I had been staying there just yesterday. Despite it being years since I last did, it seemed my mother had been cleaning it even in my absence. Grateful, yet overwhelmed. I lay down on the bed. The following days were peaceful. The tranquility was disturbed when a figure appeared at the front door. It's Salpidodern. I know you're there. Come out. What is it? Expectantly. I faced James. In just a few days. James had become haggard. Having left all household chores to me, he was incapable of cooking for himself, and judging by his unkempt appearance, he likely lost his job. Still, James attempted to sweet-talk me. Hey, Wendy, can we start over? Huh, that sweet voice once thrilled me, but now it only disgusted me. I think I was deceived by such a man and lived with him. At that moment, I strongly realized there wasn't a single shred of feeling left for James. Don't talk so pleasantly. My voice naturally became stern. But James didn't give up. I want to start over. After what happened with Brianna, I've changed. I won't cheat anymore. Let's move to another city and start anew. Oh, I was astounded. How could he so smoothly lie with no regard for the truth? I saw it right through James. He still thought of me as some convenient housekeeper. That's why he wanted me back. Nothing more. He didn't care about me. What about Brianna? She got a good scolding from her husband. Ended up being kicked out of her house. They even said the baby might not be his. Well, that's good for you. I said it sarcastically. Now you can be with Brianna. She was just using me. I can't be with a woman like that. James acted as if he was the victim. Even now, he was trying to use me. She got what she deserved. And she'll probably deceive another man anyway. Oh, how I hate her. It would be better if she never finds another mare. Hatred was evident in James's voice. It seemed he had shifted all the blame onto Brianna. So believing he was not at fault, he shamelessly came to see me again. Sorry, but I made my intentions clear. I can't live with you anymore, because I've come to despise you utterly. Do act tough. Andy, you still have feelings for me, right? I was speechless at his conceited remark. How could he still be under the illusion that I had any lingering feelings for him? I'm serious. James, I do hate you, excerpt Commandy. James took a step closer, and in that instant, I shouted, Mom, call the police. What, Wendy? I can't deal with you anymore. You and I are over, understand? I could hear my mother's footsteps approaching. Neighbors alerted by my loud voice also appeared. They all glared at James uniformly. Tim, I'll come back again. Won't come back? James fled like he was running away. After that, James never came to confront me directly. Instead, he called every day, regardless of the time. I want to start over. Wendy, live with me again? Are you joking? I'm serious. I can't live without you. That was probably true. James never helped with the housework. He seemed to have been taken care of by his mother back in his bachelor days. Speaking of which, I suddenly remembered something. That's why I had gone back to the apartment once. For James, I'd left with nothing but myself, so I returned to get my belongings. The cures. I encountered James and Brianna arguing vehemently. Very somewhat easy stakes. I've left my husband. I'll be with you. Don't be ridiculous. You weren't left. You were kicked out. They were arguing in such a manner. I tried to ignore them and leave, but James noticed me. Andy, you came back. As James approached me with a smile, I stopped him with both hands. I just came to get my things. You're concerned about me, aren't you? Ugh, how self-absorbed can you be? Brianna scoffed in the background. James turned to scold her with a shut up, then redirected his attention to me. Wendy, let's live together again. We'll remarry and start over, just the two of us. I told you I'd call the police if you came near me. James hesitated for a moment at my warning, but quickly regained his smile. Please, Andy, forgive me. I help with housework and never look down on you again. Of course, no more cheating. That's definitely out of the question. You are just being played. James is wasted in anger. You're unbelievable. Andy, I'm pouring my heart out to you, and you ignore it. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not entertaining you. Retaliation. Brianna burst into laughter. I turned to her. Can you raise the child on your own? That's none of your business. Brianna scowled. The charm and composure she had shown at her in-law's house were gone. Wait. I nodded. Just let me say this. I couldn't have children of my own. That's why I envy you. Brianna put her hand on her hip, giving me a defiant and assessing look. However, the real assessment should have been directed towards me. That's why I'm worried about your baby. Just leave me alone, she said dismissively, caressing her belly. I'll raise this child with my efforts. That's good, I said, feeling relieved and smiling gently. Brianna may have issues with relationships, but it seemed she was prepared to be a mother after all. Benz, I'm glad for you. I don't need your concern. Bye. Brianna left briskly. Meanwhile, James was wailing, "Don't ignore me. Vitri, Wendy, move aside. I'm here to get my things." Magdits, Wendy, then, in response to James's pitiful attempt to gain sympathy. I subservly, "Move." James recoiled in fear and made way. I stepped into my former residence. There was no nostalgia, nothing. I remembered the layout of the rooms well, so I quickly gathered my belongings without trouble. Exiting into the hallway, I found James standing there looking lost. I glanced at him briefly and left the apartment. I decided to settle down at my parents' house. As the eldest daughter, I knew I would eventually return to take care of my parents. Getting used to living there from now on wasn't a bad idea. For now, I'm helping with household chores and the garden. Sometimes my sister and her husband visit with my niece. She's so cute. Even as I smiled and said this, I felt a tinge of sadness. Not being able to have children was, after all, a source of sorrow for me. Do you remember your childhood friend? Lucas? One day, my mother brought it up cautiously. So about Lucas. He's still single. How about meeting again? I forced a bitter smile. I knew my mother was concerned for me, but marriage was the last thing I wanted. Lucas would be bothered by me, wouldn't he? Actually, my mother leaned forward. Lucas himself suggested it when he saw you had returned. I was surprised. Lucas, chubby as a child and not particularly good-looking, was kind and attentive. Ugly Mao, he's a teacher at our old middle school. I don't know. I was non-committal. I wanted to meet Lucas, but not as a matchmaking arrangement. Actually, a few days later, I found myself walking through a shopping mall with Lucas. Let me carry that for you. It's fine. I was awkward, responding coldly to Lucas. Yet he accepted me with a gentle smile. However, he looked different from what I remembered. Sorry, Fendi, for suddenly inviting you. About with that, we sat down in a cafe for a break after placing our order. I once again voiced my question, "Why did you want to meet me?" Well, he hesitated for a moment, then looked at me determinedly. "I was shocked when I heard you got married. That's when I realized I liked you." Lucas. An awkward silence descended. It was uncomfortable, but not unpleasant. Feeling someone's affection was a long-forgotten sensation. After dating for 6 months, Lucas and I got married. But unlike my flashy wedding with James, Lucas preferred a quiet ceremony with just family and friends. I preferred it that way too. My parents' house was close, so I could visit them daily. Lucas was hardworking and adored by his students. So, one of my students. That must be tough. We laughed together at the dinner table. The meal centered around vegetables from our garden. We did bulk shopping for meat and seasonings on weekends. The rhythm of our new life was gradually falling into place. Ending. Oh, what is it? Have you thought about having kids? I paused, realizing. I have. Really? He smiled, seemingly relieved. It was a year and a half later when I became pregnant. I hoped our child would resemble Lucas. Our child, resembling my mother, made us and the entire family laugh. Let's name her Christina, taking one character from Mom's name. Sounds good. Lucas repeatedly called out to Christina. I walked into the garden with her. Lucas beside me. Lucas is so gentle and kind. Why didn't I choose him before? Lucas, what's up? Thank you for waiting for me. Wendy. Lucas embraced me, his eyes welling up with emotion. Christina giggled in my arms. I'm sorry. I couldn't be brave sooner. Because of that, you went through a lot of pain. It was my lack of judgment. After all, the person most important to me was right here.